A very good evening and welcome to the national broadcast. I'm Malsha Dharmavardhana.
I'm Moving Hettiarachchi and here are today's headlines. President receives India's COVID-19 vaccine consignment. Inoculation begins tomorrow. Sri Lanka ranks among the top 10 nations which have handled the COVID-19 threat successfully. Sri Lanka reports the highest COVID-19 recoveries recorded in a single day today. The development process of Kanugahadap village begins fulfilling the pledge of the president. A special traffic plan in place for the Independence Day celebrations. Now on to those and more stories in detail. The first consignment of COVID-19 control vaccines donated by the Government of India was officially handed over to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka has been ranked among the top 10 nations which have handled the COVID-19 threat successfully. The stock was donated to Sri Lanka following a request made by President to Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi. Carrying 500,000 vials, the Indian airline flight AI-281 landed in Katunayake Bandaranaike International Airport at 11:45 this morning. The consignment was handed over by High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Gopal Bhagle, at the airport. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga, State Ministers Sudarshani Fernandopulle and Channa Jayasumana, Principal Advisor to President Lalit Veeratunga, Foreign Secretary Admiral Professor Jayanath Kolombage, and Commander of the Sri Lankan Army and Chief of Defence Staff General Shavendra Silva were also present on this occasion. Developed by the Oxford University in the UK, the AstraZeneca COVID Shield vaccine was manufactured at Serum Institute in Mumbai. The weight of the vaccine stored in the aircraft's special cold storage is 1,323 kilograms. The stock of vaccines is planned to be stored in cold storage of the airport premises and distributed in refrigerated vehicles covering 25 districts. A total of 50,000 vaccines from the received consignment were brought to the storage of Ministry of Health amid special security of the Sri Lankan Army this evening. Subsequently, the samples of the consignment have been taken to Medical Research Institute in Colombo. Vaccination will commence at 6 main hospitals in the Western Province tomorrow. Around 150,000 health workers, 120,000 members of tri-forces, police and security forces who are in the front line of the COVID prevention programs will be given first priority in the inoculation program. Responding to a request by the President, the Government of China too will donate 300,000 vials of the vaccine. Principal Advisor to the President and Chief of Presidential Task Force on Procurement of COVID vaccine, Lalit Veeratunga, said, "Whether to get the vaccinated or not is an independent decision of the individuals," he added. He further said that those who dislike the vaccine can refrain from taking the dose. Meanwhile, foreign reports have indicated that AstraZeneca COVID vaccine produced in India appears to be successful in fighting against new, more infectious variants of the pandemic virus found in the UK. This has been revealed in reports issued by the India's Medical Research Council and the National Institute of Virology. Meanwhile, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Gopal Bhagle, paid a visit to Ganganarama Temple in Colombo before visiting Katunayake Bandaranaike International Airport to hand over the vaccine consignment granted by the Indian government to Sri Lanka. The High Commissioner has said it is significant that the granting of the vaccine consignment to Sri Lanka has been scheduled on Durutu Full Moon Poya Day, the first full moon Poya Day of the year. Sri Lanka has ranked 10th among the countries which have effectively handled the COVID-19 pandemic. Australia's Lowry Institute has assessed 98 countries upon 6 criteria, including confirmed cases, mortality and testing metrics with information available until January 9, 2021. Accordingly, powerful nations such as the United States, United Kingdom and India have been placed below Sri Lanka in the index. The COVID-19 Performance Index has revealed that New Zealand has handled the coronavirus pandemic more effectively than any other country in the world. Languishing at the bottom is Brazil, ranked at 98th position, closely preceded by Mexico, Colombia, Iran and the United States. The United States has been placed at number 94. Meanwhile, Indonesia and India are sitting at number 85 and 86 respectively. Meanwhile, Vietnam, Taiwan and Thailand were ranked 2nd, 3rd and 4th respectively. Several small countries including Cyprus, Rwanda, Iceland and Latvia have also made their way into the list of top 10 nations. Accordingly, Sri Lanka becomes the only South Asian country to feature among the first 10 nations which have controlled the spread of the virus efficiently in the world. The lowly study can be considered as a valued opportunity for the country to receive accolades for the measures undertaken by Sri Lanka to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 internationally and on a scientific basis. The measures to control the spread during the first wave of the pandemic were highly appreciated through several international studies carried out in the recent past.
Meanwhile, the High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka, Gopal Bagley, says that both Sri Lanka and India will continue to work closely together to fight the pandemic and for mutual prosperity, peace and progress to fight the pandemic, and he made these remarks while issuing a statement today.
COVID vaccines made in India are contributing to fighting COVID disease not only in India but all over the world. On 16th January this year, the Government of India began the world's largest vaccination rollout, under which 300 million people are going to be covered by the middle of this year. At the same time, India has exported millions of vaccines as gift to several countries in the neighborhood and in lands and across seas far away. I'm very happy that again India has been first responder in terms of sending COVID vaccine to Sri Lanka. I do believe that India and Sri Lanka will continue to work closely together to fight this pandemic and to work for mutual prosperity, peace and progress.
Meanwhile, the epidemiology unit says that 1,869 COVID-19 recoveries were reported today. This was the highest number of COVID-19 recoveries reported on a single day. The number of COVID-19 recoveries in the country has increased up to 54,435. The percentage of the fully recovered patients have increased to 89.17%. 10.35% of COVID-19 patients have still undergone treatment, which amounts to 6,320. A total of 19,142 COVID-19 recoveries have been reported in the country since the beginning of this month. Another 1,869 recoveries have left treatment centers today. Sri Lanka reported the highest COVID-19 recoveries recorded in a single day today. 245 recoveries COVID-19 patients at the COVID-19 treatment centers in Polonnaruwa district were discharged today. They have been identified as residents from Colombo, Gampaha, Kaluthara, Kandy and Kayagol district. 101 recovery patients have left the Kayagol district COVID-19 treatment center. Another 351 COVID-19 patients were identified in the island today. All patients have been identified as close contacts of Peliaguda COVID cluster. 15,259 PCR tests were conducted yesterday. Accordingly, the total number of PCR tests up to now have reached 1,663,943. Meanwhile, 2 COVID-19 related deaths were reported yesterday. The deceased have been identified as residents from Colombo 15 and Gonapola area, aged 43 and 74. Doctors have indicated that the conditions of Health Minister Pavitra Vanniyarachchi, who have tested positive for COVID-19, is continuing to improve. According to a statement issued by the Ministry of Health, the first contacts of the Health Minister have been detected to quarantine and steps have been taken to conduct the PCR test on them. In the meantime, Minister Pavitra Vanniyarachchi have instructed the Secretary to the Ministry of Health, Major General Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe and Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardana, to carry out the inoculation process in an effective manner. Meanwhile, State Minister Piyal Nishanta have fully recovered from COVID-19 and left the hospital accordingly. A program have been initiated to direct the staff of the parliamentary complex from random PCR test. Sergeant at Arms Narendra Fernando have requested all parliamentarians to take part in the program. The tests are expected to be completed on a weekly basis during an ongoing parliamentary session and as well as a period where the sessions are not being conducted. A total of 190 PCR tests have been conducted in the parliamentary premises since January 25th and no COVID-19 patients have been detected. Sri Lanka Railways have announced that the Denuvara Manike intercity train operations along the upcountry line from Colombo Fort to Badulla have been temporarily suspended. Accordingly, decisions have been reached due to the less number of seats reserved from the train. Therefore, the passengers who reserve seats for the train service will be accommodated on Podimanike train. 16 persons who have violated protective guidelines during the last 24 hours have been taken into custody. So far, 2,808 persons have been taken into custody for such violations. The operations to monitor whether state and non-state institutions are adhere to health protective guidelines are in effect at present. Accordingly, 830 institutes were observed yesterday. According to the police, 71 institutes have failed to adhere to health protective guidelines so far and 7,208 institutes have been monitored and 1,160 have been identified as institutes which have been failed to adhere to health protective guidelines. And let's take an update on the corona world. The number of global COVID-19 cases has totaled at 1,007 million infections with 2.17 million deaths worldwide thus far. Meanwhile, a team of experts from the World Health Organization have left quarantine in Wuhan had begun their on-ground investigations into the origins of the coronavirus. Today is Durutha full moon Poya Day, which marks the milestone in history of the Sasana. Many religious observances were held throughout the island today in accordance to the health protective guidelines. Historical chronicles of the Sasana states that the Lord Buddhas first placed foot in Sri Lanka on a Durutha full moon Poya Day. After the defeat of the Yaksha tribe, construction work of the Mahiyanga Nedagaba, in which the hair relic of the Buddha is reposed, commenced on such a Poya Day. In addition, the historic records of the Sasana states that upon the initiative of King Bimbisara, the Buddha visited the Rajagahanwara with 1,000 arahats on such a Poya Day. The establishment of the ritualistic invoking of merits and the enthrallment of Prince Sirisangabo at the Mahayangana Stupa are also events associated with the Poya Day. The 206th Dhamma sermon of the Amadam Sisilasa series conducted based on a concept of the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was held at the Prime Minister's official residence in Vijayarama. Today's Dhamma sermon was delivered at the Venerable Dr. Kehelwala Nandathera of the Maligakanda Vidyodhana Pirivana. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa visited the Kalaniya Raja Mahaviharaya and inquired the well-being of the chief incumbent, Venerable Professor Kollupitiye Mahinda Sangarakita Thera.
වෙන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි රටට ආදරේ. මහා සංඝරත්නයට දේශපාලනික වශයෙන් අරගෙන බැලුවම පාටක් නැහැ, පක්ෂයක් නැහැ. අපේ පක්ෂය තමයි පූජ්‍ය පක්ෂය. අපි හිටගන්නේ හැම වෙලාවෙම රට පැත්තේ. යම්කිසි නායකයෙක් රට පැත්තේ හිට ගන්නවද අන්නේ නායකයා අපි රකින්න ආරක්ෂා කරනවා. සිවුරෙන් වහලා නායකයෝ පරිස්සම් කරපු ඉතිහාසයක්, රජවරු පරිස්සම් කරපු ඉතිහාසයක් අපිට තියෙනවා. එහෙමයි අපි මේ සම්බුද්ධ ශාසනයේ රකින්න රට රකින්න පාලකයෝ ආරක්ෂා කළේ. ඒකේ අනිත් පැත්තත් එහෙමම වෙච්ච තැන් තියෙනවා.
Professor Kollupitiye Mahinda Sangarakita Thera delivering a sermon on religious disciplines related to the country's socio-political and socio-economic processes. Venerable Mahinda Sangarakita Thera invoked blessings on Prime Minister. A program titled Yon Sila Samadhi was initiated at the Kalaniya Raja Mahaviharaya today. The program, initiated based on a concept of Minister Namal Rajapaksha, aims to direct the younger generation towards a virtuous society which endures 5 disciplines of Buddhism. A large gathering of young were present for the program organized under the guidance of Chief Incumbent of the Kalaniya Raja Mahaviharaya, Venerable Professor Kollupitiya Mahinda Sangarakita Thera. The Prime Minister also took part in this program. Meanwhile, President of the National Organization Congress, Venerable Bengamue Nalakathera, presented the Prime Minister with the Turunu Sitata Bududaham book authored by him during this occasion. Mahasangha, presented at this occasion, planted 3 saplings of different species during the program. State Ministers Prasanna Ranavira and Sisira Jaikodi, Chairman of the Kalaniya Dayaka Sabha and advisor of the Prime Minister Saman Veerasinghe, Secretary to the Minister of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs Kapila Gunawardena were present at this occasion. The Sadham Varsha religious program organized by the ChannelEye Rupavahini Corporation on every full moon poe day was telecast throughout today live from the Uduvidi Gangarame Raja Mahaviharasthane from Tissa Maharame. The program included Dharma sermons, Dharma discussions and number of community-centric programs. Many religious programs were organized today under the patronage of the Chief Incumbent of the Mahayangane Raja Mahaviharaya, Venerable Urulavatte Dhammarakita Thera, making the Durutta full moon poe day.
The development activities of the Kanugahavava village in Kabithikolava was commenced today in the presence of Sri Lanka Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa handed over the development activities of the village to the Sri Lanka Air Force during the discussion with the village program held at Kanugahavava village recently. The development activities were initiated today accordingly. Kanugahavava village is a remote village which has always been affected by the threats of terrorist activities. A total of 942 residents belonging to 314 families reside in this village. The President visited the village on the 30th of December last year. He visited the village as a part of the discussions with the village program to inquire on the issues faced by the villagers. According to a request directed by the villagers during the program, President took measures to hand over the development-related activities to the Sri Lanka Air Force. Accordingly, the development activities to provide public facilities to the Kanugahavava remote village was initiated today in the presence of the Sri Lanka Air Force Commander. The construction of the teachers' quarters of the Kanugahavava Primary School was commenced by the Sri Lanka Air Force Commander. The project to construct 10 permanent housing units for destitute families under first phase and a bell tower of the Kanugahavava Abhinavarama temple was commenced as well.
Minister Keheliya Rambukwala says that the global community shows a great tendency to turn towards Buddhism at present. The minister made these remarks while taking part in a religious program held at the Sandagiri Viharaya in Hantana Kandy today. Upon his arrival at the Sandagiri Viharaya in Hantana today, Minister Keheliya Rambukwala said, while engaging in religious observances and construction of the main Buddhist chamber at the temple, while initiating at the presence, subsequently, Minister also took part in the ceremonies vesting in Dhamma School building on the studentship, launching the Sandagiri Sa, song of the internet as well for the distribution of the ID card and certificates of the student of media unit of the Sandagiri Sa Viharaya.
The chairman of the University Grants Commission, Professor Sampath Amaratunga, says that steps have been taken to enroll additional 10,000 students to the universities this year. The chairman also said that the University Grants Commission has also reached a decision to resolve the issues pertaining to old and new syllabuses. He made these remarks during a meeting held at the Temple Trees recently. The meeting was held by the Secretary to the Prime Minister, Gamini Senarath. The Professor Sampath Amaratunga mentioned that statistical information on potential studentship to be enrolled additionally will be announced on February 8th. He also said that studies are underway on the necessary university facilities and other provisions, and necessary discussions have been initiated with Treasury as well as Vice-Chancellor in this regard. Secretary to the Ministry of Education, Professor Kapila Pereira, pointed out that procedure to enroll students into universities should be directed to a complete study and introduce a new methodology in this regard. The Secretary to the Prime Minister said that attention of the President as well as the Prime Minister has been directed to provide necessary assistance from the government to resolve the issues pertaining to university students.
All preparations have been made to conduct the 73rd Independence Day celebrations at the Independence Square. Police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said the vehicular movement in Independence Square and the surrounding areas will be limited during the rehearsal. Police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana said that the vehicular movement would be restricted during rehearsals from January 30th till February 3rd at Independence Square and surrounding areas. Accordingly, he said that traffic will be restricted from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. on rehearsal days from 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. on February 4th.
Meanwhile, a memorandum of understanding was signed today for the development of a 45-year-old Kolipitiya market complex. The MOU was signed between the Urban Development Authority and the Colombo Municipal Council. According to the instructions directed by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Urban Development Authority has made plans for a development of an old market in Colombo city. As the pilot project, Kolipitiya Market Complex will be developed accordingly. As per the agreement, a new multi-story complex consisting of 40 floors. The owners of the trade stalls in the existing market complex had requested the government on several occasions to develop the marketplace considering the depleted conditions. Secretary to the Urban Development and Housing Ministry, Sirinimal Pereira, and the Mayor of Colombo Municipal Council, Rosisena Naika, were present at this occasion. That's it for tonight's English News Update. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Good night.